My name's Elise, and my story isn't one of those fairy tales you're used to hearing. My dad was the king of his castle, and we were just living in it. My mom, she was more like the silent enforcer, backing up every one of Dad's rules with a nod and a look that could freeze you in place. Then there was my sister, Anna. She was older by a couple of years and had always been the rebel, trying to push the boundaries, but even she couldn't break the iron will of our father. Our home life? It was a series of do's and don'ts. Don't talk back. Do as you're told. Don't stay out late. Do your chores. The list went on and on. It wasn't just the rules, it was the cold way they were enforced. Love and warmth were scarce, replaced by a rigid discipline that stifled us. One day, Anna got caught up in a teenage dream. She met a guy, Dave, kind-hearted and with a smile that could light up the darkest days. But he made the mistake of not fitting into Dad's view of suitable. I remember the day she brought him over, all nervous and hopeful. The air was thick with tension. Dad took one look at him and the sparks flew. "What do you think you're doing, bringing this, nobody into my house?" he barked, voice booming like thunder. Anna's eyes were wide, tears brimming, but she didn't dare let them fall. She knew better than to challenge Dad openly. "Dad, please, he's a good person," she whispered, barely audible. "Good? Good doesn't pay the bills. Get him out of my sight," he spat, turning his back on them both. That night, Anna cried in silence, her dreams shattered. She didn't dare disobey Dad, and that was the end of her and Dave. It was a lesson in our harsh reality. Love wasn't about feelings, it was about fitting into the strict mold Dad had set. As for me, I watched and learned. I knew better than to get caught in the crossfire. I kept my head down, followed the rules, and counted down the days until I could escape. The day I left for college felt like my first breath of fresh air in years. The day I left for college felt like I was finally taking a sledgehammer to the chains that had bound me my whole life. My bags were packed, and I was ready to bolt out the door, but not without one last showdown with the warden, my dad. "Elise, you think you're ready for the big world out there?" Dad's voice was like gravel, tough and unyielding. He stood in the doorway, a towering figure that I was about to leave behind. "I'm more than ready, Dad. I've been ready," I shot back, my voice stronger than I felt. Inside, my stomach was doing flips, but there was no way I'd let him see that. Mom was in the background, wringing her hands, the eternal peacemaker. "Be safe, dear. Remember to call us, every day," she said, her voice trailing off as if she already knew the impossibility of her request. College was a blur of new experiences, late nights, and the kind of freedom that was intoxicating. I made friends, actual friends, who liked me for me, not because of some unspoken family obligation. One night, in our cramped little dorm, my roommate, Jess, and I were sprawled out on our beds, talking about everything and nothing at the same time. "So, Elise, you ever gonna call your folks? You've been here a month, and I haven't seen you pick up the phone once," Jess asked, her tone casual but probing. I sighed, staring at the ceiling as if it held the answers. "I talk to my mom now and then. But every call feels like a leash tightening around my neck. It's always, 'Are you eating well? Are you studying hard? Remember who you are.'" Jess laughed, a light, easy sound. "Sounds like my mom, but on steroids. They're just worried about you, you know? It's a big world out here." The college life was turning into everything I hoped it'd be, a stark contrast to the suffocating grip of my parents' house. I was finally feeling the weight lift off my shoulders, getting used to the idea of living on my own terms. Then, out of nowhere, my bubble burst when my mom decided to drop a surprise visit. I was in the middle of a laugh with Jess when there was a knock on our door. The last person I expected to see on the other side was my mother, standing there with a look that could sour milk. "Elise, what is this place? It's so small," she said, her nose wrinkling as she stepped inside, eyeing Jess like she was some sort of street urchin. Jess, ever the brave soul, extended her hand. "Hi, Mrs. Martin, I'm Jess." Elise's roommate. Mom looked at Jess's hand like it was covered in dirt but shook it anyway. Jess, is it? Elise, can I have a word with you, in private? The way she said in private made it sound like we were about to discuss state secrets instead of whatever she had on her mind. Once we were alone, she wasted no time. Elise, that girl, she's not the right sort of friend for you. She's vulgar, she hissed, her voice laced with disdain. I felt my cheeks burning, a mix of anger and embarrassment stewing inside me. Mom, Jess is a great person. She's been nothing but kind to me. Ignoring me, Mom began rifling through my closet, her hands moving from one piece of clothing to another with a speed born of disapproval. And these clothes? They're far too revealing. What on earth are you thinking, wearing things like this? Each word felt like a slap, stripping away the independence I'd started to build. I wanted to scream, to tell her to stop, but the words wouldn't come. All I could do was stand there, silently fuming and fighting back tears. After what felt like an eternity, Mom left, leaving a trail of silence in her wake. I collapsed on the bed, the dam finally breaking as tears streamed down my face. Jess came in soon after, sitting beside me without a word. She handed me a tissue and waited for the storm to pass. Elise, screw what your mom thinks, okay? You're awesome, and if wearing a tank top is the biggest of your sins, then you're practically a saint, Jess said, her voice a mix of anger and comfort. You're your own person, Elise. Don't forget that. Her words, simple and straightforward, were like a beacon in the fog. Jess was right. I was my own person, and it was high time I started living like one. After college, I landed a job in a big company known for its semi-finished meat products. The boss, Michael, was this young guy, grandson of the founder. Kind of hot, if I'm being honest, but in a I've got my life together kind of way, which was intimidating and attractive all at once. One day, he called me into his office. My heart was racing, thinking I'd messed up a report or something. Elise, can you come in here for a second? His voice was calm but carried across the sales floor like he was announcing the next big product launch. I walked in, trying to look confident but probably failing miserably. Yes, Michael? He was leaning back in his chair, reports scattered across his desk. I've been reviewing your work. You've got an eye for detail. Impressive, he said, his eyes not leaving the papers. I didn't know where to look. Was this a compliment or the prelude to a but? Thank you, I try my best, I managed to say, feeling my face heat up. No, thank you. It's refreshing to see someone take their work seriously around here. Keep it up, he said, finally looking up with a smile that made my knees weak. Fast forward a few months, Michael got transferred to another department. We barely saw each other, which was probably for the best. I mean, dating your boss? That's a recipe for disaster, right? Then, as fate would have it, we bumped into each other at the supermarket. I was inspecting some sad-looking avocados when I heard his voice. Finding anything good? I turned around, and there he was, casually dressed, which was a stark contrast to the suits I was used to seeing him in. Michael. Hi. Just, trying to decide if these avocados are worth it, I stammered, feeling like a complete idiot. He laughed, a sound that was way too charming. Let me give you a tip. This one, he picked up an avocado, is perfect. See? Firm, but not too hard. We ended up talking more about fruits and vegetables than I ever thought possible. One thing led to another, and we found ourselves having dinner together. It was casual, easy conversation that felt like we were just two people getting to know each other, not an employee and her boss. After that night, things changed. We started seeing each other outside of work, keeping it on the down low, of course. It was nice, comfortable. But I couldn't shake off the fear of what my parents would think, so I kept it a secret from them. A year flew by with Michael, each day feeling like a step further away from my old life and closer to something that was entirely ours. One chilly evening in November, Michael took me out for what I thought was just another date night. We ended up at this quaint little spot downtown that had the best view of the city. It was more romantic than our usual hangouts, and I should have guessed something was up. As we sat there, looking over the city lights, he got all serious, which wasn't like him. "Elise, these past months with you have been incredible. You've shown me what it really means to be in love," he started, his voice steady, but I could tell he was nervous. I was caught off guard. "Michael, what's going on?" My heart started racing, not sure what to expect. He took a deep breath, reached into his pocket, and before I knew it, he was down on one knee, holding the most beautiful ring I'd ever seen. "Elise, will you marry me?" My heart stopped. This was it, the moment I'd dreamed about but never really thought would happen, at least not under these circumstances. "Yes, Michael, a million times yes," I managed to say, tears of joy blurring my vision. The euphoria of our engagement was overwhelming, but it was short-lived. The thought of telling my parents loomed over us like a dark cloud. I knew I couldn't keep this a secret forever. The fear of their reaction was paralyzing, but Michael was supportive, encouraging even. "We should tell them, Elise. It's the right thing to do," he said one night as we were discussing, more like avoiding, the subject. The day we decided to tell my parents, my stomach was in knots. We drove to their house, the silence in the car heavy with unsaid fears and unasked questions. Sitting across from my parents in the living room felt like being in a courtroom, waiting for the judge's final verdict. "Mom, Dad, we have something to tell you. Michael and we're engaged," I blurted out, not trusting myself to build up to it gently. First, there was shock, then a frosty sort of acceptance once they learned Michael wasn't just some guy, but a guy with a hefty bank account. The real drama unfolded when Mom started laying out her grand plan for the wedding. "We need to have it in the church, with all the trimmings. It'll be magnificent," she said, her eyes already picturing the event. I could feel my dream of a simple, intimate wedding slipping through my fingers. Mom, Michael and I were thinking something low-key. Just sign the papers and have a small party. "That's it," I said, hoping to steer her away from her grand designs. Her reaction was as if I'd suggested we get married in a fast food joint. "Unacceptable. A girl's wedding day is her most special day. I'll take care of everything. Don't you worry," she said, dismissing my wishes with a wave of her hand. I felt my temper flare. "But it's our wedding, shouldn't we get to decide how we want it?" I protested, but Dad cut me off mid-sentence. "If you don't do it this way, you might as well not do it at all. No blessing from us," he said, his tone final, leaving no room for argument. Michael had been quiet up till now, trying to keep the peace. But even he seemed to falter under the weight of their expectations. "Maybe we should just go along with it, Elise," he whispered to me, a hint of defeat in his voice. I couldn't believe my ears. Betrayal stung me, sharp and unexpected, from the man I'd just agreed to marry. My parents, seeing his compliance, practically beamed with victory. The ride back from their place was heavy with my disappointment. But as soon as we were alone, Michael took my hands in his. "Listen, Elise, I only said that to calm things down. We're not doing it their way. We're doing it our way, okay? Let them think what they want for now," he said, his voice firm, his eyes telling me he meant every word. I was in the middle of discussing cake flavors over the phone with Michael when the doorbell rang. The moment I opened the box, my heart sank. It was for me, a wedding dress. But not just any dress. It was the epitome of what I never wanted in a wedding gown. Layers upon layers of tulle, a bodice that looked more like armor, and a train that seemed long enough to cover a football field. It was horrendous. Staring in disbelief, I called Michael back, panic edging my voice. "You won't believe this. My mom sent over a wedding dress. It's like a cake topper from the 80s got turned into a dress." Michael's laugh did little to soothe my rising hysteria. "Maybe it's not that bad? Try it on?" "Try it on? Michael, this thing has its own zip code. It's a disaster," I shot back, the image of me drowning in layers of lace burning in my mind. Before I could spiral further, I decided to confront my mom. Dialing with trembling fingers, I braced myself for the inevitable showdown. "Mom, why did you send me a wedding dress?" "We talked about this. Michael and I are doing things our way," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause on the other end, and then, "Elise, darling, that dress is a masterpiece. It's what every girl dreams of. You'll thank me." "A masterpiece? Mom, it's not me. It's not us. We want simple, remember?" My patience was thinning, each word a struggle to maintain civility. "Simple is for table settings, not weddings." "You'll wear it, and you'll look beautiful," she retorted, her voice leaving no room for argument. "Elise, listen to me. Your father and I have already taken care of everything. The hall is booked, and plans are set. You're going to have the wedding every girl dreams of." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. "What do you mean, everything's set? Michael and I haven't agreed to any of this." I could feel my voice rising, a mix of anger and disbelief swirling inside me. "It's done, Elise. We've even sent out the guest list. It's going to be a beautiful event," she said, her tone final, cutting off any avenue for protest. I hung up, feeling defeated and betrayed. It felt like I was being steamrolled into someone else's version of my wedding. When I relayed the conversation to Michael, his face fell. "Yeah, your mom called me. She insisted I cover half of the budget she's drawn up. Sent me the bill, the hall address, and some wedding design proposal," he admitted, looking like he'd swallowed something sour. "And the guest list, she sent that to you too?" I asked, dreading the answer. Michael nodded. "Yeah, it's packed with people I've never met. And I didn't see any of your relatives on it. Your mom mentioned something about keeping it exclusive." The realization that my parents were orchestrating a wedding that catered to their social circle, sidelining our wishes and even my own family, was too much. Tears streamed down my face as the enormity of their manipulation sank in. Seeing me crumble, Michael wrapped his arms around me. "Hey, we're not going to let this happen. We'll have our wedding, our way. Just us, our friends, and whoever we want. No dictates, no lists. Let's do it secretly, the way we want." I needed an ally, someone who could understand the madness of defying our parents on such a grand scale. Naturally, my thoughts turned to Anna, my sister, the one person who'd always understood the weight of our parents' expectations. So, I called her up, heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. "Anna, I need you to be super chill about what I'm about to tell you. Michael and we're planning a do-over. A real wedding that's all about us, no parental strings attached." I spilled, the words tumbling out in a rush. Her response was immediate, a mix of shock and awe. "Holy smokes, Elise. That's huge. I'm in. What do you need from me?" Relief washed over me. "We're thinking something simple, outdoors. Just love, laughter, and the people who really matter. No drama, no spectacle. Can you help keep the lid on this? It's top secret. Consider it locked down. I'm so proud of you, Elise. It's about time you took your life back from them," Anna said, her voice brimming with excitement and a touch of mischief. With Anna's help, we started planning in earnest. Invitations went out, with a clear, almost spy-like message. This is a covert operation. Do not, under any circumstances, let the rents know. Our friends and family were in. The buzz of excitement was palpable, a shared secret that bound us all together in a way I'd never experienced before. Then came the call from Aunt Clara, a relative I hadn't expected to hear from. "Elise, darling, I got your invitation. Your mother hasn't stopped going on about some lavish affair, but I knew something was up. You're doing the right thing, love. Don't worry, my lips are sealed. Heaven knows she didn't want me at her version of your wedding anyway. Said I didn't fit the guest list aesthetic." Her words, so full of support and understanding, bolstered my resolve. This was more than a wedding, it was a statement, a reclaiming of our choices, our voices. The week leading up to the official wedding, my parents' version, was a masterclass in acting. Michael and I went through the motions, nodding along to plans, tasting cakes that tasted like cardboard, and smiling through gritted teeth. It was a performance worthy of an award, but our eyes were on the prize. Then, on a day not our wedding, as not our guests gathered at some impersonal hall, Michael and I were boarding a plane to Bali, our hearts light, free from the weight of expectations. Bali was everything we wanted, intimate, breathtakingly beautiful, and so us. We exchanged vows near a waterfall, the sound of rushing water a perfect backdrop to our promises of forever. After our secret wedding in Bali, the reality of facing the fallout with my parents was a cloud hanging over our return. I knew the storm was brewing, it was only a matter of time before it broke. The first call came from Anna, who was both excited and nervous for us. "You guys back yet? The hurricane's about to hit land here," she said, her voice a mix of amusement and concern. "Yeah, we just landed. How bad is it?" I braced myself for the impact, clutching the phone like a lifeline. "Mom and Dad are on the warpath. They found out about Bali when they tried calling you to berate you for being late to your own wedding. When they realized where you were, all hell broke loose," Anna explained, the words tumbling out in a hurried whisper. Dialing my parents' number felt like the longest few seconds of my life. The phone rang twice before my mom's voice came through, icy and sharp. "Elise, where do you think you've been? Do you have any idea of the embarrassment you've caused us?" "Mom, I'm sorry you feel embarrassed, but this was about what Michael and I wanted. We needed our wedding to be true to us, not a spectacle," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Dad thinks we should cut you off, you know. After this stunt, maybe he's right," she added, the threat hanging in the air like a guillotine. The anger in her words was palpable, but so was the conviction in my response. "If that's what you think is best, then so be it. But Michael and I made a choice for our happiness. I wish you could be happy for us." The line went dead, her silence a clear indication of the breach that had formed between us. The aftermath was a mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that Michael and I had followed our hearts, but sorrow for the rift that now lay between my family and me. As the day of our real celebration drew closer, a gnawing worry kept me up at night, the fear of my parents crashing the party, hell-bent on making a scene. Michael, ever the rock, saw the turmoil I was in and came up with a solution. "Let's get some security. Keep the drama at the gate. This day's about us, not them," he said, his decision firm, leaving no room for argument. The day of the party was nothing short of magical. We chose a minimalist outdoor style for the celebration, with simple, elegant decorations that complemented the natural beauty around us. As dusk fell, electric garlands lit up the venue, casting a warm glow over the faces of our friends and relatives. It was like something out of a dream. Standing beside Michael, both of us dressed to the nines, I felt a surge of happiness so intense it was almost overwhelming. Our guests came up to us, one by one, showering us with congratulations and warm wishes. Anna was beaming, her happiness for us clear as day, while Aunt Clara, bless her heart, kept me in a tight hug before pulling me into every dance. The night was perfect, a true celebration of our love and the life we were building together. But then, the inevitable happened. Word got to me through one of the security guys that my parents had shown up, determined to force their way in. My heart sank. I had hoped it wouldn't come to this. Michael squeezed my hand, a silent vow that we'd face this together. I approached the entrance, where my parents stood, arguing with the security. "This is my daughter's wedding. You can't keep me out," my dad bellowed, his face red with anger. "Please, you need to leave. You weren't invited." I made it clear, no drama today, I said, my voice steady though my heart was racing. My mom tried to push past the security, her eyes blazing. "You can't do this to us. We're your parents." But the security held firm, a gentle but unyielding barrier between us and them. I don't want to have to call the police, but I will if I have to. Please, just go, I said, the finality in my voice surprising even me. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of joy and celebration. Every dance, every laugh, every shared look with Michael reaffirmed my belief that we had made the right choice. We were happy, truly happy, surrounded by the people who mattered most.
All right, everyone's presentations are done, Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1, if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.